Welcome back to Royal Sussex Squad, the place where we speak truth with heart, where we stand for justice, where we see through the media fog and call out the hypocrisy aimed at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. This is not just commentary. This is resistance to the relentless smear campaign against two people who dared to break away from a system that was never built to protect them. And if you're new here, make yourself at home. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. And if you're one of our day ones, or you're just loving what we do here, don't forget to show your support with a super thanks. Because today we are unpacking one of the most toxic, calculated, and utterly shameful hit jobs we've seen in a while. Now let's start with this article that the Daily Beast just vomited onto the internet. Prince William, who wants so badly to be seen as calm, composed, and capable, is now, according to sources, plotting vengeance. The word they used wasn't resolution or reconciliation. It was vengeance. They claim that once he becomes king, one of the first things he'll do is strip Harry and Meghan of their HRH titles. Just take a moment and let that sink in. A man waiting to become king is spending his time nursing grudges and planning petty punishments against his own brother and sister-in-law. Does that sound like leadership to you? Apparently, William feels that Harry and Meghan's behaviour has been vile. Yes, vile. That's the quote, and the trigger for this venom. Harry gave a BBC interview where he expressed concern about his father's health. That's it. A son. A human being. Says he's worried about how long his father has left. And somehow that becomes the spark for William's so-called righteous wrath. How cold do you have to be to twist a statement of concern into an insult? The same royal insiders who stood by while Meghan was dragged through the mud are now clutching their pearls over Harry, expressing something that every family touched by illness understands deeply. But in royal land, honesty is betrayal and empathy is weakness. Let's not act like this is new. The campaign to vilify Harry and Meghan didn't start with that interview. It started the moment they refused to be quiet, the moment they said, "We're not going to be your scapegoats anymore." And that right there is the real crime in the eyes of the firm. Not breaking protocol, but breaking silence. The article goes on to quote a former courtier, and we know how those people operate, claiming that William now sees Harry and Meghan as loose ends, to be snipped off when he becomes king. That kind of language is chilling. It's not the language of a brother, it's not the language of a leader, it's the language of someone who sees people as problems to be erased. And it's not just disgusting, it's dangerous. Because we've seen how this kind of language is echoed by hate groups online, by tabloids that thrive off division, by commentators who salivate at the chance to tear Meghan down. They talk about the HRH titles like they're a moral judgment, like Meghan and Harry's value depends on whether or not they have a couple of royal initials in front of their names. But let's be real. The title never protected them. It didn't stop the racist headlines, the violent threats, or the mental anguish. So, whether they have the HRH or not, they've already reclaimed their power. Meghan and Harry built a life, a brand and a platform without a palace, and that, my friends, is what really terrifies the monarchy. What's truly laughable is that the people pushing this narrative are conveniently silent about Prince Andrew. He still has his HRH. This is a man who settled a lawsuit related to sexual abuse and was friends with a convicted trafficker, and yet somehow the fury is aimed not at him, but at Meghan Markle, a woman whose crime was being smart, black, and beloved. And can we talk about the double standards? When Meghan received a letter addressed to her using the HRH title, it was someone else's words, a private note sent to her. But the press went berserk, acting like she printed business cards with Her Royal Highness in bold letters. They're so desperate to find dirt on her that a greeting in a letter becomes evidence of some elaborate conspiracy. Meanwhile, Camilla can rebrand herself from the other woman to Queen, and no one bats an eye. But what's truly disgusting is the way this article tries to dismantle Harry's legacy. It paints him as unstable, as broken, as if he's spiraling into irrelevance. They say his interview was delusional, contradictory, and a mess, but let's get something straight. Harry didn't lose control. Harry took control. He took the narrative back. He's not living on palace handouts. He's building something with integrity, away from the toxicity of a system that devours its own. They mock him for expressing emotion, for being raw, for showing the kind of vulnerability that the stiff upper lip crowd refuses to acknowledge. But that vulnerability, that honesty, is exactly what makes Harry powerful. It's what makes him human. That's why millions of people around the world see themselves in him, in Meghan, in their fight to protect their family and speak the truth. The British press doesn't want you to see that. They want you to see tantrums, not trauma. They want you to see entitlement, not survival. But we know better. Harry didn't fall from grace. He walked away from a lie. And that's not failure. That's freedom. Let's be clear, this isn't about titles. This isn't about protocol. This is about control. The institution is afraid of what happens when the fairy tale falls apart, when the public sees that behind the crowns and carriages is a family broken by pride, silence, and power games. Harry and Meghan expose that every time they live their truth. That's why they're being punished. Not for what they've done wrong, but for daring to live a life that isn't scripted by palace PR. So when you see these headlines, these so-called insider quotes, understand the game. They're trying to exhaust you. They want you to tune out, to give up, to believe that Harry and Meghan are finished. But they're not. They're just getting started. Because no matter how many times the press tries to bury them under lies, the truth always finds light. Harry and Meghan are living proof that you don't need a palace to be powerful. You don't need a title to be respected. What you need is authenticity, courage, and a willingness to rise even when the whole world wants to see you fall. And that's exactly what they've done, again and again. So if you're with us, if you see through the spin, if you believe in truth, in justice, and in the right of every person to protect their peace, then join this movement. Hit that subscribe button. Share this video with someone who's had enough of the media lies. And if you want to help us keep speaking out, help us keep calling out the madness, and help this channel grow, please consider clicking that super thanks button below. Every donation helps keep this space alive, loud, and laser-focused on the truth. Prince William plans to exact vengeance on vile Harry and Meghan, as King Prince William will act immediately to strip Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their His/Her Royal Highness (HRH) titles once he becomes king, according to sources close to the Prince of Wales who spoke to the Daily Beast. One friend said Harry and Meghan's behaviour has been absolutely vile. They added that Harry's unhinged BBC interview made it clear he has no interest in reconciling. If he did, a period of silence would have been the right thing to do. The HRHs will go, the friend said. Although such a dramatic move by William has reportedly been under consideration for some time, a former courtier said it has gained renewed urgency following Harry's Friday interview, which left the royal family stunned and frustrated. In the chat, Harry expressed doubts over King Charles's health, saying he didn't know how long his father had left to live. Sources close to the king have been widely quoted in British media saying that Harry's comment was in very poor taste, especially considering the optimistic note the monarch has sought to strike amidst Charles's ongoing cancer treatment. Despite the offence to His Majesty, insiders believe Charles is unlikely to take any further action against his younger son and daughter-in-law, preferring to avoid deepening the family rift. Prince William, however, has a different view. The former courtier told the Daily Beast that William now believes Harry and Meghan must be completely cut off from the royal institution. They described the couple as loose ends that William is determined to tidy up by snipping off once he ascends the throne. The former courtier added, "He has no direct contact with Harry anymore, so it will be a clean break, and the chaos of a royal succession is always a good moment to make decisive changes. It will be among the first things he will do." The courtier made it clear that Harry and Meghan are likely to lose their HRH styles, which is simply a matter of royal decree. However, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles would remain intact, not least because the mechanism for stripping them of those titles would require parliamentary action, a politically fraught prospect. Norman Baker, a former government minister who has written extensively on royal and constitutional matters, previously told the Daily Beast, "I have little doubt that as the bestowing of an HRH is in the gift of the monarch could remove the HRH title. It would basically be the equivalent to an executive order in the US, Baker added. It was a mistake to not simply take it away at the time. People didn't want to up the ante and cause problems, so it was smudged over, as so many things in the UK are. But as we can now see, it would have been useful to have had that clarity. The couple agreed not to use their HRH styles after stepping back from royal duties in 2020, but they technically retain the titles. Meghan has recently started publicly using the HRH style again. The issue was highlighted by the Daily Beast 2 weeks ago after Meghan published a letter she received addressing her as Your Royal Highness. A Meghan source said at the time, Harry and Meghan retain their HRH titles. However, by agreement, they do not use them for commercial purposes. While they do not publicly use HRH, this was a personal gift, and their titles remain. However, the published agreement simply said that Meghan and Harry would stop using the tiles altogether, not only in a commercial context. The statement, which can still be seen on the official royal website, reads, The Sussexes will not use their HRH titles as they are no longer working members of the royal family. Prince Harry could have been a powerful force for good. Now he's just a cautionary tale. Watching Prince Harry's BBC interview, it was difficult to believe that this was the same man who was, until just 5 years ago, a consequential voice in global environmental advocacy and philanthropic leadership. For years, he was a leading campaigner on issues like conservation and mental health, and, together with Meghan, he had the potential to do real, tangible good. Instead, Harry appeared to be a significantly diminished figure. The whole thing was shocking to witness, not just because of the tone, but because of the astonishing naivety on display. Harry genuinely seemed to believe that he could go to war with the entire British establishment, from the palace to the government, and somehow emerge victorious. Typically, one person you don't want to pick a fight with is the king. That's just not an adversary you're going to beat. Not when the institution is so embedded in the fabric of the state. The interview itself was a mess, riddled with contradictions and misplaced delusions of his own importance. At one point, Harry claimed he had forgiven his family. Moments later, he was simmering with rage, complaining bitterly about his security arrangements, and implying that the monarchy was colluding against him and that some people wanted him dead. He said he wanted reconciliation while claiming that he wouldn't bring his children to the UK because it wasn't safe. Frankly, it beggars belief that Harry couldn't find a secure way to visit his home country if he actually wanted to. It seems more likely that he's backed himself into a corner, boxed in by a narrative he can't now escape without looking weak. It's a very Windsor trait, of course, pride so entrenched it becomes its own trap. And who the hell is doing media strategy for Harry? No one by the looks of things, or at least no one prepared to say, maybe not, sir. Friday may have been one of the worst days of his life. He had just suffered a humiliating court loss, estimated to be costing him upwards of $2 million, and yet, on that very day, he decided it was a good idea to put himself in front of a BBC camera. The result was exactly what you'd expect, a visibly upset, defensive man oscillating between tears and fury. The idea presumably was to get his narrative out there, yet it looked impulsive, badly timed, and catastrophically misjudged. More than anything, the interview showed a man whose message is now so confused and muddled that it's hard to know what he wants anymore, beside motorcycle outriders waiting for him at Heathrow Airport. Does he want peace with his family, or does he want revenge? Has he accepted defeat, or is he still plotting legal retribution? He says he's moved on, but still drags the same old grievances into every public appearance. The emotional instability was palpable, like a souped-up, raw version of the tone of his memoir, Spare, which often read like a therapy transcript turned into a royal tell-all. Remember, this is the man who admitted to being hurt because his brother got the bigger bedroom as a child and the nicer house as an adult. That isn't the voice of someone ready to lead. It's the voice of someone stuck in childhood hurt. Yes, it could be true that Harry has been treated very unfairly. The fact that a Prime Minister who served just 44 days receives lifetime security while he does not is absurd. But to have not anticipated this outcome, to have carried on in such a bull-headed fashion, demanding terms he was never going to get, is a graphic display of the lack of realism that has defined Harry's trajectory for the last 5 years. What we're witnessing now is not the rebellion of a bold prince, but the slow, painful decline of someone who could have been something truly remarkable. He had global visibility, access to unrivaled networks, and public goodwill by the boatload. He was well placed to be a voice for progress and change, but that platform has been squandered. Through impatience, through poor advice, through ego, and perhaps most tragically through deep, unresolved trauma. The reaction to Friday's interview said it all. Where once every Harry and Meghan bombshell would dominate the headlines for days, this one barely made a ripple outside the UK. People are tired of hearing a man with extraordinary privilege, wealth, and a mansion in California complain endlessly about how unfair life has been. And so, Harry now finds himself in a strange royal purgatory, no longer a working royal, sort of a celebrity, increasingly irrelevant. He's starting to resemble a bizarre hybrid of Prince Andrew and Edward VIII, men who, having spurned duty and tradition, found themselves isolated, stuck, and increasingly defined by bitterness and regret. In the end, Harry will likely be remembered not for his potential, but for how he squandered it. An enormous tragedy of a man who could have been anything, had he only been able to get out of his own way. This is Royal Sussex Squad, where we defend what matters, where we see through the noise, and where we stand tall with Harry and Meghan today and always. Stay sharp, stay strong, and remember, when they come with lies, we come with receipts. We'll see you in the next one. Keep shining.